Hey guys, BrandonioProductions here, and welcome to my Learning Java tutorial series, part 20. In this tutorial, we will be talking about how to use a mouse motion listener in order to interact with applets by holding down the mouse button. So, just with the mouse listener class, I have created a mouse motion listener class in which I will be creating a very simple applet that will demonstrate how the mouse motion listener works. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to make this mouse motion listener tutorial class extends applet. And then of course, since it extends applet, we need to public void paint graphics g. So this is the method that will be run when the applet is started. We also need to import java.applet.applet and import java.auth.graphics. Okay, so now that we have our main applet here and our paint method, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to devise a method in which we can actually test out the mouse motion listener. So what I want to do is create a program where every time you click the mouse, it draws a circle of random color. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to create a global variable, a global graphics variable that will hold the graphics. And then what we're going to do is every time it's painted, we want to set global graphics equal to g.create. This is the same functionality that I did in the mouse listener tutorial. So basically what we're doing is we're setting up global graphics so we can use them in other methods. And then we're going to create a method that draws a random color circle. And once we click the mouse button, it's going to call that method. So we're going to set up the method public void draw circle, and we're also going to set up the method public color draw color, or not draw color, get random color. So for the get random color, all we need to do is returns a random color. All we need to do is get a random color and then return it. So we're going to use the same method we did in the mouse listener tutorial. Each color in Java is represented, or on the computer, is represented by values of red, green, and blue. So what we need to do is we need to generate random values of red, green, and blue. So we're going to generate red equal to int math.random times 256 int green. So what we're doing here is the math.random command generates a random number between 0 and 0.999. So what we're doing is we're taking this random number from 0 to 0.999 and multiplying it by 256. So the lowest possible value we could get is 0 times 256, so that's 0, and the highest is 0.999 times 256, which is just around 256. However, when you convert to integer, it always rounds down. So this value, 0.999 times 256, will always round down to 255. And on the RGB color scale, the maximum value for any given color is 255. So then we're just going to return the new color and put in red, green, blue. Then we're just going to need to import color, so we're just going to have Eclipse do that for us. And then the draw circle method, what we're going to do with this is we're going to say global graphics dot set color, and then we're going to say get a random color, and then we're going to global graphics dot draw is there one for drawing? I don't know if there's one for drawing a circle. I've never done it like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new ellipse 2D circle equal to new ellipse 2D dot double, and we're going to send in first thing we need to do. Oh my goodness, sorry. Ellipse 2D circle equals new ellipse 2D. Yeah, so we do need to do dot double. And so the first thing we need to do is specify a x and a y in the draw circle command, and we're also going to specify a width and a width and a height. So the ellipse2d.double takes in double x, double y. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert all these to doubles, double x, double y, double width, and double height. Okay, so now we've got our ellipse2d called circle set up, and now what we're going to do is we're going to create graphics 2d g2 equal to graphics 2d global graphics. So in order to draw this circle, we actually need to convert our graphics to a graphics 2d object. So we're just simply converting the global graphics to graphics 2d and calling it g2. And then we're just going to say g2.fill circle. So now we've got our basic method set up where we get a random color and then we draw a circle of a random color. So now what we need to do is we actually need to set up our, before we begin, I'm just going to set the size of the applet when we start, and it's going to be 500 by 500. Nice square applet. So now what we need to do is when we run this applet, what we're probably going to notice is that nothing happens. We just create a 500 by 500 applet. So we actually need to give it the functionality where it actually detects the mouse motion. So in order to do this, we are going to create a MouseMotionListener class. But since we don't want to actually create another class, we're just going to make this class itself implement a MouseMotionListener. And then what it's going to have us do is import MouseMotionListener, and then it's going to want us to add unimplemented methods. So there are two main methods we have here. We have MouseMoved and MouseDragged. So both of these methods work right off the bat. So what I'm going to do is just rename these parameters to E. And so both of these methods are sub-methods of the MouseMotionListener interface. And what they do is every time the mouse is dragged across an applet or the mouse is moved across an applet, these methods are called. So, for example, okay, there's not really an example. So we can just jump right into our code here. So we've got the mouse dragged. So this happens every time the mouse button is held and the mouse is actually moved. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to get the x and y values of the mouse. So we're going to say int mouse x equal to, now in order to access all the properties of what happened when this mouse was dragged, we use this mouse event here, and it's just called e because that's what I renamed it to. So we're going to say e.getX, and we're going to say create a new integer called mouse y equal to e.getY. And then all we're going to want to do is draw a circle on mouse x, mouse y, and we're going to make it a width of 5 and a height of 5. So there we go. Now when we've got the mouse dragged, that's when the left mouse button is held, and or a button is held rather, and it's dragged across the screen. It will log the current position of the mouse, draw the circle, which in turn sets the graphics to a random color, which we generated with the getRandomColor method. And then we're creating a new circle and drawing the circle with a graphics 2D object. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this application. And as you notice, nothing happens at first, but when we actually drag the mouse across the screen, nothing happens with that either. Now I actually ran into this problem with the other tutorial, the MouseListener tutorial, where when I clicked, nothing was drawn onto the screen. So I'm pretty sure we've got our class. Oh no. Okay, so I was pretty sure that we got our class, and this is actually really easy to forget. Now what we actually did here is we actually made our class implement a MouseMotionListener, which means it's a MouseMotionListener itself. But our applet, we didn't tell it to use itself as a motion listener. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the init method, which is run before the paint method in any applet, and then we're going to say this.add MouseMotionListener this. So this line essentially tells it that it's its own MouseMotionListener. So if we run the applet now and we drag the mouse, you can see that we've got a nice cool looking trail going. Well, that actually looks pretty cool. It's nice in 3D. It's very hard to tell that these are actually circles. They look more like rectangles. So what I'm going to actually do is make it bigger so we can see if they're actually circles being drawn. And they are indeed circles being drawn. Of course, there's many being drawn at once, so they do look very uh, um, pixelated, if you will. And keep in mind that this only occurs when the mouse is actually dragged. So if you simply click on the screen, nothing happens. That's that's actually a really cool effect. It looks like tubing or something. Wow. Okay, and the second method that we have to go over here is the MouseMoveD method, and all that just happens when the button is not down. So actually, in a basic paint program like we're creating now, we don't actually want to do anything with the MouseMove method. But what we can do is when the mouse is dragged across the screen and the right click is held instead of the left click, we can actually draw a square instead of a circle. So in order to do that, we're just going to create a new method, public void draw square, and it's going to take in an x position, a y position, a width, and a height, int height, all being integers, of course. And then we're going to global graphics dot set color get random color, because again, we want to make sure that these are random colored squares to spice things up. And with drawing a square, we can simply use global graphics dot fill rect x, y, with height. Those are already named as specified. And there we go. So if now all we need to do is set it up. So we say if e dot get button is equal to mouse event dot button 3. That's when right click is held down, button 1 being left click, button 2 being middle click, the scrolly wheel, and button 3 being right click. So if right click is held down, whoops, then we're going to no. So we can actually move these x and y's up above the if statement, because no matter what, we're going to want to get those. So if right click is held down, then we are going to draw a square, and we're going to draw it at mouse x, mouse y, and it's going to be 20 by 20, just like the circles. And then we can just move this line up here. Okay, so now if we test it out and we run the applet, if we left click, once again, we get our circles going, but if we right click, we still get circles. Okay, so apparently our right click was not button 3. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to, in the console, system.out.println e.getButton, and see what button is being pressed with right click. And it turns out that when we right click, it's button 0. It's being called. Okay, so maybe that's one of the flaws. See, I've never figured this out before. I'm just figuring this out for the first time. When the mouse is dragged, apparently it doesn't actually detect buttons. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to further the functionality of this mouse motion listener and combine it with a mouse listener. So this is using information from the last tutorial, part 19, where we worked with a mouse listener. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a private integer to keep track of the mouse button that's currently pressed. So we're just going to call it MouseButton. And it's going to, by default, equal 0, just because. So when the mouse is clicked, this is using the mouse listener class. So we've got mouse entered, mouse exited, mouse pressed, and mouse released. But every time the mouse is clicked, we're going to set the mouse button variable that we just created equal to e.getButton. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a separate method, public void mouse action, and this is actually going to perform, and it's actually going to take in a mouse event e. So this is going to perform exactly what we wanted it to perform here, except instead of asking, or that was a weird accent thing. Instead of comparing e.getButton, we're actually going to compare MouseButton. So that's the variable that we keep track of every time the mouse is clicked, we change. So now every time the mouse is dragged, we're going to perform the mouse action on E, and every time the mouse is clicked, we're going to perform the mouse action on E. But before we do that, we're going to change the mouse button, of course. So let's go ahead and try that. And now, when we actually drag the mouse, we get left clicking, we get a circle, but when we right click, okay, we still get circles. Oh, okay. Look at that, I did it again. I forgot to this.add mouse listener this in the actual init method. So once again, the class is a mouse listener, but the applet itself didn't know to use itself as a mouse listener. So we're just going to go ahead and run the applet again, and now if we click, we get circles, and if we drag, the circles go out in this tube thing, and if we right click, we get squares, and if we right click and drag, we get boxy tubing, more like ventilation, if you will. The only problem with this is, in order to actually switch mouse buttons, you can't just go and drag straight off the bat. You actually have to click first. But nonetheless, this is still pretty cool. I mean, look at this. Having fun with this already. See, these are the possibilities that you can do just with programming. You can create these cool little things, and yeah. Okay. Alright, I've had enough fun with it. No, I haven't. It's so psychedelic. Alright, so anyway, guys, thanks for watching this video that describes the mouse motion listener. What I'm going to do right now is, actually, on the mouse dragged, is there anything else that we can say get button, but not really? No. So, yeah, when the mouse is dragged, you cannot detect the button, apparently. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pause the video and look that up really fast, because I have never encountered that before, and see if there's a solution. So give me 1 second. Alright, so I seem to have found a solution thanks to Kingston at javaforum.org. Apparently, when you're using mouse events, there's also an alternative way to actually get the button. So what we actually want to do is, when you when the mouse drag method is activated, if you actually want to get the button that is being pressed, or rather, if you want to detect if it's left click or right click, you can actually see okay, so let's just do this. So when the mouse is dragged, we're going to say MouseButton equals e.getModifiers. Now the get modifiers is just an integer that contains information about which buttons are currently being pressed, and each modifier has its own code. So the left click has its own code modifier, the middle click has its own code modifier, and the right click has its own code modifier. So then in the mouse action button, we're saying if the mouse button is mouse event.button3, or if mouse button is mouse event.button3 mask. So button3 mask is the alternative mouse event.button3, but for e.getModifiers. So now, if we hold down left click or hold down right click, we immediately get circles or squares. So in order to get a better picture of this, we can just say, in the mouse dragged event here, if mouse button is mouse event dot button 3 mask, we can system, oh my goodness, I'm having trouble typing, print line right click. So as we can see here, when we actually run the application, when we hold down left click, nothing happens, just circles draw. But when we hold down right click, we actually get console messages that we're pressing right click. So there you have it. So when you actually want to detect left click or right click with the mouse dragged event, you're going to want to use get modifiers. Alright, so thanks for watching this tutorial on how to use the mouse motion listener. This is very useful if you're wanting to create your own paint program, or you just want to give your program some functionality with click and drag. So hopefully you guys found this tutorial useful. I will be putting up more videos later. As please stay tuned for the next tutorial, Java tutorial, which should be going over how to use a key listener in your applet in order to detect keystrokes. Alright, so once again, thanks for watching. Please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys in future videos. Peace.